Very, very warm good afternoon. I hope all of you are feeling bright and bushy-tailed, because we're going to have a very rousing discussion now. When I got this topic, I was reminded of a dinner of a few HR heads had about a month and a half ago, when times were a little better and numbers of new COVID cases were far, far lesser. Yeah. And one of the topics that was discussed at that dinner was the annual, some companies have an annual target of training mandates, okay? And over the last 2 years, the annual target for training mandates was met maybe 2 or 3 times in 3 months, right? With virtual training happening, yeah. The other topic that was discussed, interestingly, was the other end of the spectrum, that with almost all of training in the last 24 months turning virtual, the problem was learners or trainees have become more and more anonymous. A lot of learning happens with cameras switched off, conversations happen with cameras switched off. The element of depersonalization or dehumanization, if I can use that word, slowly started worrying people, and also worrying about the effectiveness of learning that is happening, right? Today, to discuss this and to arrive at some of the things that are being done to humanize training, if I can use that word, we'll come to know from our eminent panel. And what we're going to do is I'm going to ask each of the panelists in alphabetical order of their first name to perhaps tell us first about what they feel about the topic, 1. 2, what are the things that they're doing in their organization, specifically, in the area of, handling virtual training, and is this issue of humanizing it relevant, not relevant? What are some of the things they're doing in their organizations? I'll follow that up after we've done with all the panelists. I'll follow that up with a few questions that I have to delve a little deeper into some of the topics. So without further ado, I'm going to ask the first panelist to give us his views. Jeeva, over to you. Can I ask you to throw some light on this topic, please?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Raj. Am I loud and clear?
Yes.
That's a check. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Raj. It's a wonderful topic. And in fact, we had an offline conversation. So why such topic? Why humanizing learning? So my job has also become very simple today, because earlier my colleague, the chief guest of today, Emma, spoke about the whole principle and how we are operating as clients, as a group. And then you'd also heard from many of my colleagues today morning during their award presentation what they are doing in their diverse business. So as you all know, we are very diverse business. And one guy was talking about how he was able to make a difference in the service engineers' life, how they were able to do it in a pandemic situation, but still were able to contribute to the business, and then reduce the customer compliance and then increase the customer satisfaction. At the same time, service the customers. And somebody else, a colleague from fashion lifestyle business, was talking about an initiative which really helped the business to increase their outcome. And I'm talking about outcome-based measurement. It's all about the top line and bottom line. So they were contributing. One of my other colleagues was talking about a talent marketplace. That's a roadmap towards a talent marketplace. It's all about building a capability building, so that we build a largest talent marketplace. So the advantage is we don't need to depend on any competitors for hiring. We can produce our own people. And at the same time, there is a talent liberation process, a talent mobility advantage within the organizations. So these are some of the things they spoke in the morning. And then him also connected with personalization. So it's all about personalization. So how we were able to manage learning the last 2 years. One is in digitization, and second is we don't want to lose the personalized approach, the humanizing approach. So what do we mean by human approach? It's all about being empathetic, being relevant, making it relevant to our learners, or rather, our employees. That's the most important thing. So how we can leverage technology and still maintain that human element. So there are a lot of initiatives. Maybe I can pick up a few initiatives, what we are talking about. So we also, interestingly, we launched some new businesses for the first time ever when we started home delivery during lockdown. So we had to train people, which they have never done it in the past, but we use this lockdown time to train them and then deliver customers. So we use technology, we used VR, AR based solutions. So there is a human element, at the same time there is a technology. So we used virtual reality without any need for any additional equipment. People can feel the store, they can walk through the store, they can interact with the customers, still they can learn. And that's something which we tried, and it was really, really successful, and people are able to understand. And the second thing is normal VALT. Anyway, the VALT happens, virtually instructor-led training program. It happens everywhere. But how we can make it different was we use a lot of tools like Mentimeter or Padlet to engage people, or breakout rooms. So that there is conversation. There are conversations, and still we are able to engage them. The third one is a simple talking PPT. People are really, and 90-95% of our employees are in the field, and mostly, and our grocery business was still running, and then there are certain businesses which are not running during lockdown. But still, these people were able to connect with. They always have a connect with the trainers, local trainers. But the local trainer can't travel everywhere. So we created something called talking PPT. So PPT, there is in a corner that the trainer is still there. So the employees can connect with that person and then still able to learn. There is in PPT also this is there, and then there is another tool called Boom. That's also possible. And then one is using all the tools. And as Hema rightly talked about, we are in retail and diverse business. So employee experience is actually the foundation for customer experience. Unless the employees are having good experience, they'll not be able to deliver. So in terms of, I don't think we are going to, I think we are going to discuss on well-being as well. So once their well-being is taken care, when the employees are well taken care, at the same time, they're also supported with right capabilities to do their job, and they'll be able to do it. There are two things. One is employee-centric learning, and then second one is business requirement. So when I'm talking about employee-centric, the whole learning need analysis changed. We flipped it to employees' needs. How we are going to make it relevant for our employees. So the employees, when I'm joining an organization, what is important for me is role readiness certification. Are the skills and capabilities required to do my job in an effective way? And that's where we focus a lot on making it role readiness, so that learning is not a consumption. It is actually a creation. More than curation, it is also a creation. So they are part of the learning process, and then that's the first stage. And then the second stage is a continuous stage, a continuous learning, or precision learning. Whatever is required, it is available everywhere. It's like democratizing learning. So learning is available everywhere. Content is available everywhere. We need to really create an excitement for me to, or for the learners to really pick up and then take it. The third one is, as we are growing, I think we are, as we are proudly saying that we are India's largest marketplace. There are a lot of opportunities for them to grow within the organization, which is not there, which is limited in other organizations. So there are a lot of businesses and diverse businesses and a lot of opportunities. So they can grow, they get certified, they build their capability in more than their domain, more than their, it's called career lattice or career mosaic. So they can get developed, and they get certification and then move on. There are a lot of opportunities for them internally to grow. This is where we are creating a need for learning, and there is a personalized approach as well. Yeah, so that's my, I don't think I've taken much time, so over to you, Raj. Raj, you're on mute.
That's another I think most used comment, huh? You're on mute, and can I be heard, and all the rest of it. Anyway,
this is something which I learned in the last 2 years.
Thanks, Jeeva. Thank you very much for that perspective. And I think point that you raise is very important, that In a sense, the shift to virtual learning is timely because of all the digitization that's happening around, not just in learning, but in every sphere of our lives. And it's our responsibility, I guess, as learning professionals to try and make it as exciting as possible, and keep the people element, the human element, the human touch going completely through and through. Thank you so much for that. Karanjeet, can I request you to throw some light on this topic and what you feel about it?
Thank you so much. I was patiently listening, and it just took me back a couple of months ago. And I would just like to say one thing in terms of humanizing the learning through technology. I think the way you just did it, of paraphrasing, even within 15 to 20 seconds, that builds in a lot of retention and traction. And talking about the company where I'm currently in, with different verticals, which is frontline, showcasing the products to our customers. If I look at manufacturing, wherein we've got the best of the best engineers and the teams, they come with different backgrounds, access to different level and amount of technologies, and at the same time servicing the B2B sector. So I believe without humanizing the learning space, it wouldn't be possible at all. And I'm very passionate about this. So we do different things for different sets of audiences. And in fact, we learned a lot from our audiences when we were, talking, whether it's through a WhatsApp video call or if it's through Zoom or MS Teams. First thing, what we figured out was that the comfort level of the audience is most important, because their earlier comfort level pre-pandemic was face-to-face. And it was a shift for everyone. So in today's date, technology works a lot. You have the like, the heart symbols, and the handshake symbol and everything. That works for the younger generation, for the millennials. But for the relatively elder lot generation, which is not used to these kind of so-called buttons and who are not that tech savvy, they too require learning. And that requires a different construct. And for that, again, it's been a journey. So for example, if you look at one or two sets of, industries like, let's say manufacturing, they know their jobs very well. They know how to do their jobs very well. And the requirements are very, very specific. And they're absolutely clear in what they want. All they just need is that confidence that, yes, even in today's age and today's world, irrespective of how technology has progressed, that, we choose to trust them. And they require relatively more hand-holding as compared to, let's say, millennials. So it's a support system, and technology has worked to that advantage. And it's a matter of building faith, when we talk about humanizing. So the basics were already there. It's just that how do we attune ourselves when we move into a learning setup? So when we speak with the business leads and the business heads, their primary concern is not about how many different programs or what kind of ROI in terms of rupees or training effectiveness. One of the primary concerns is that, how do you get across a varied audience across the board? And how quickly can you do it? So I believe technology is one aspect. And another important aspect of what I was also observing in the prior conversation of very simple techniques like paraphrasing, building trust. Personally speaking, 2 years ago, if somebody would ask me to come in front of a video camera and even shoot a short snippet, I would be very shy about it. I would get very conscious, irrespective of the number of years of work experience I have. Now, all of a sudden, the whole world is saying, sit in front of a camera, talk for 2-3 hours, or 4 hours or 8 hours. And I mean, this would make anybody uncomfortable, not only me. So how to slowly build that thing up? A lot of people have various genuine reasons. So opening that comfort level. In the corporate side, honestly, people didn't have a choice but to move on to video calls. But in the non-corporate side, the way things work, how different industries operate, how do we make people comfortable with choices? That is very important in a learning sphere. So we can still choose to have this conversation without our videos, but that loses the thrill. But when the videos go on and how uncomfortable people are, we get to see that through the body language. And it is this very reason why humanizing is very important. How do you make a video interaction more soft, not hard? It's not a numbers conversation. It's a people conversation. So we do very simple things which connects with the audience there and then and there and now. It's easier to ramble out what's coming in our minds, but the choice is always there to listen. And one of the advantages of the video is that you can get to see whether even the other person is responding or is even listening to you or not. And that's what letting people know the power of video. And it is just in today's date and age, just secondary to a face-to-face conversation. And how we've pitched it is that, thank goodness, the coronas and the omicrons don't get transmitted through videos. So that brings in a level of an element of humor in the conversations. So yes, so building comfort, establishing trust. So the basics remain the same. We use different tools, what my previous colleague talked about, totally dependent on how comfortable the other individual is. I mean, that's what we all do. Whether it's through a phone, through an iPad, through a laptop, desktop, at the end of the day, the message should go across in the right manner. So yes, humanizing is the foundation. And we do different things for different sets of people. And technology to support, it is not the only reason why we choose to do that. I think that's what I would like to submit over here.
Raj, you are on mute.
I thought I unmuted myself. Obviously, I didn't. Right. Thank you, Karanjeet. I think it's interesting what you say, that the basics remain the same, right? And people touch is essential to what we do. And it's just that it has to be done in a way which is personal, which is relevant to that specific individual. Yes, I think a lot of people insist on videos being on during training sessions, but there are some hard nuts who say, hey, no, I will not put my video on. So I guess there's also that tussle which happens. But I guess all that is part of the finding new ground. Nishiganda, if I can request you, I think you work in a very different industry to what Jeeva and Karanjeet are in. And I guess things have moved very, very much in your industry as well and in your organization. It would be lovely to hear from you, your perspective on this particular topic.
Thanks, Raj. Yes, the way you mentioned, it's a completely different industry. And we being, the pharma retail, during the entire COVID and the lockdown period, we were operational, and our proposition is 24/7, right? So all employees were working 24/7. It was a very difficult time, actually, that, from the transportation till everything was a challenge for them, but still we wanted to motivate everybody to come and work. At the same time, what we did was, we actually thought that this is a great opportunity for the capability building, and we need to invest a lot into capability building. So immediately we actually moved on to an online platform. We actually have a very beautiful LMS platform, which has the video facility and all. However, till then, I guess people were hesitant to use the video and online facility, right? People were more comfortable in the face-to-face kind of a training environment. So we moved into the online training programs for our team. At the same time, motivating the team was very, very crucial during this time, because they knew that, the HO people are sitting at home. However, I'm working in the store 24/7 and exposing myself to the patients, right? Because the people who would visit the store, they would be like impacted with some kind of infection maybe. So that's where we actually put more focus onto the the tagline for the entire training intervention was locked hai par down nahi hai. So that's the way, we were trying to build that motivation. We did a lot of training interventions like 3 hours modules for our store team, wherein store and as well as our warehouse team, because 400 people were working in the warehouse day and night to ensure the medicines and, everything is being passed on to the stores at the appropriate time. We did a lot of online programs for them on their well-being, mental well-being. There were programs on the counseling. We had actually empaneled the counselors who will actually have to connect with them for the mental well-being, how they can take care of their health, and the desk yoga and all, because they need to be physically fit as well. So, and on the sales, in fact, that was a time the salons were closed, right? And people were focused more into the taking self-care. So we actually trained our staff on the personal care products, how to use those personal care products, how you can guide the customers on using the personal care products, though they are not visiting the salons. And the entire focus was, on their skill development, which will help them in actually motivating themselves as well as building the customer connect. We launched a beautiful program called as Lavanya for all our female, staff who is working in the stores. And that was completely on the personal grooming as well as how can you guide customer on buying the personal care products. The best thing, the entire team was motivated because we wanted to build our own training center. And that happened during the COVID time, wherein, people were cutting down on the training budgets. We invested in training and we built our beautiful training campus during that time. And once the lockdown was, lifted, people were like eager to visit and see that training premises, because during this period, we started the video-based content. So our trainers, we trained the trainer on how to, create your own videos, and trainers started creating their snippets and we started publishing it on our platform. At the same time, what we did for the participants, that whatever you are learning, you create your videos and upload it on our learning platform. And then we actually ran the contest and we selected the videos and we published it as a training content, and those people got rewarded. So that kind of, intervention built a lot of engagement and motivation for, the team to actually continue the learning during this entire difficult time as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Nishiganda. I think
Raj, again, you are on mute.
Thank you, Nishiganda. I think the point that I like that point about locked hai bagar down nahi hai, and I think that's a wonderful way to, I guess, also give that message across and motivate people. And I guess, yes, and I think this whole thing on personal grooming and various other points, wonderful points. Thank you so much for that. I'd like to move over to Sabharatnam from Titan. Ratnam, I know that Titan had launched the virtual LMS maybe a decade ago, but over the last 2 years, there's a lot of work that's happened, especially with Titan U having been launched virtually, coincidentally from April of 20, and the multiple number of training that is delivered for both retail and non-retail. Be great to hear from you what has been done at Titan as one of the largest retailers in the country to humanize learning.
Thank you, Raj. I hope I'm audible to everyone.
Yes.
Okay. Completely in sync with what Jeeva spoke about and what Karanjeet was alluding. And certainly agree to what Nishiganda was talking on the well-being and people at the stores working hard, whereas the expectation from them, from people in the corporate office, is also to put in the same kind of effort. I think we started with that as a premise, and we have seen a huge surge in the use of technology. Most of the sessions have been virtual, and the change also has made us think on how to make them as effective as an instructor-led training, if not better. And we have learned newer ways of engaging with our participants. Also learned that not everyone was comfortable using the remote platforms. Apart from the connectivity issues, we focused on teaching people how to mute and unmute themselves. That was the first thing that we started focusing on. We also quickly figured out that if we have to have meaningful programs online, then we need to have smaller groups. It was important to focus on individuals, and that's where the humanizing actually happens. We also looked at probably a pre-work for participants, because that was one way of getting them to relate to the subject, and also encourage peer learning, because a lot of good learning happens when somebody who is in the same level, is able to tell you something. And that becomes quickly relatable from a participant's point of view. We also looked into the likes of Menti, Kahoot, Loom that Jeeva was talking about, and that enhances the engagement and creates word clouds, which could also be seen, happening on the screen as far as participants are concerned. A lot of focus on developing compelling content for learners to get into self-learning. And like what you mentioned, Titan U was something where we were curating content through subject matter experts throughout the organization. We created that. More than 150 people have been identified who are constantly contributing to that content. And also, duration wise, you cut down on the programs that you run, so 8 hours doesn't work anymore. You can't sit for more than 2 hours in a place. You definitely have to have a 15-20 minute break, if you're doing a 3-hour session. So it's mandatory to look at all these requirements. Though from a facilitator's point of view, it becomes like a continuous thing. But from a participant's point of view, it's important to measure the fatigue that is happening when they are hearing you remotely. We have certainly looked at launching Coursera, LinkedIn, and these are, enablers for the people who are self-motivated. But now we are also seeing that since these are enablements which have happened in the organization, leaders are persuading their people to take up something, which is relevant for them. That also is, helping us build the effectiveness for all the spends that we are making. There is a risk, of losing personal touch, and probably that is one of the reasons why we really need to have a better infrastructure. So better content, newer ways to engage the learner, and methods to grow, personal and learner accountability. We have been asking franchisees to invest on a good broadband. We have also, involved them to set the context sometimes, so that there is a better buy-in from the participants. Even people from the business who are keen to run program, need to participate and grow their perspective around the need for running it. Like what I said earlier, having a smaller group helps when it comes to attention and participation from all the learners. new icebreakers have been thought of. We did a brainstorming session with all the trainers just to build a set of icebreakers that we could run with all the participants. We came up with almost 80 odd icebreakers, Raj, and that was quite interesting. It was never done before. Similarly, getting them to tell stories. Storytelling has become an important part of engagement. Taking up case studies and discussing them has become extremely important. So there is a one-on-one personalization that happens when you are listening to someone who is talking from the other side. And it's important that no matter what time you give, you get to hear everybody who is in the training space. So when it comes to participant engagement, we have also looked at building in quizzes, keeping the team alert. And the trainer also knows that people are listening behind the screen, right? We have experienced better results when we have had the main stakeholder in the program who was key to getting the program going. And that really brings the skin in the game. So that's how we have personalized, Raj.
Thank you, Ratnam. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me this time. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. I think what I hear you saying is shorter programs, 2-hour, 3-hour programs on the one hand, much greater leader involvement, fun coming in through better, more creative icebreakers, so creativity of trainers is improved. Investment in technology, both from as simple as the line itself to usage of different kinds of technology to bring in. So various things that are happening. Very interesting to hear what you have to say. Thank you very much for that. Can I request Sandhydeep to give us her perspective in how it's working in your organization, Sandhydeep?
Sure. Thank you, Raj. I think we all are resonating quite similar thoughts. And, as an individual leading organization and leading the HR for organizations, my biggest challenge has always not just been around humanizing learning, but also humanizing organizations. I think that has been something that has kept me going for a very long time now, and more so during the pandemic. The dehumanization of entire organization has reached very, very different levels altogether. So I think we can all, I see most of us are learning professionals here. We can relax a bit. It's not just humanizing learning, but humanizing organizations, every element of it. I think that's something that occupies minds of good leaders. And with that, I think learning is I've been a hardcore learning professional for a very long time before I went into general management. And for me, the best example, the best epitome of learning is when it originates from a need. If there is a need that is felt, that needs to be implemented in an organization, whether it's learning, whether it's development, the humanization finds its way into it. More often than not, I've realized, and that has been my learning over the years, dehumanization happens when there is no need and we want to do things because we want to feel good about it. So that has been a conscious effort over a period of time that I have focused on, that my learning intervention should come from hardcore organizational needs. And when there is a need, there is an event of monitoring, not just by HR, but business also monitors it, because it's a business need. Finally, they want results out of it, and therefore they're monitoring it. When they are monitoring it, you make it more meaningful. When you're making it meaningful, there is no way that people will feel that, oh, it's only digital, or oh, it's only good for fun to have. So finally it finds a nice blend, and you're able to marry the tech, you're able to marry the human part of it, you're able to marry, and more so in an organization like mine, we run over 400 to 50 stores of Pizza Hut and KFC in the country, and we've got people over across the country, and therefore tying them together under one umbrella, I need to digitize it. But I ensure that when I'm digitizing it, the meaning of that learning event is not lost. And when the meaning is not lost, and by meaning I mean that the objective of that event is not lost. It's a business objective, there is a derivative out of it, and there are leaders who are monitoring. So I think that takes away a lot of just, why is my video off, or why is my video on, or do I enjoy it, I don't enjoy it. Finally, if there is an outcome expected out of it and everyone has to live up to that outcome, people tend to get involved. When there is involvement, whether it is digital or in person, by all means, people enjoy and learn together. So that has been my biggest learning and a success at Sapphire Foods. Second, and I'll keep it very short. I see that we're running quite fast on clock. It is important for us to ensure that you've got right cohorts getting into programs. Gone are the days of calendarization. You had a calendar, training calendar, and people went in like a factory, came out like like on a conveyor belt. Those are days of passé. I think it has to be cohort-based, need-based, individualized. It has to be a combination of everything. And when we do that, and when we keep in mind that it is objective driven, there is a need, and we ensure that we're monitoring it, I think we find our way home. And tech helps us scale. Thanks.
Thank you, Sandhydeep. I think that, I think keeping it outcome focused, I think was a big one that you said. I think that rallies people around, ensures that, people are not switched off and they're connected to everything that's happening. Swatee, you've come from the pharma business, and there has been like, 24/7, like what Nishiganda was saying. And how's this whole process of, one, virtual training, and two, the personalization of it, how's that panned out in your organization and industry?
Yeah. Thanks, Raj. And I think a lot has already been said. So I will try to keep it succinct and brief, and try to capture the insights that I feel and the experiences from the industry that I come from. So one is that for me, I firmly believe it's a lot about learning as an enriched experience. At the heart of it, are we making it an experience which is highly engaging and immersive for the learner? And I think all of us have spoken about it. Like, it is more about keeping the learner at the center. So what is it that will give the learner joy, ease, and also make the learner feel connected with the rest of the organization and the community, not just inside of the organization, but even outside? That's what we need to cater to. And what, Sandhydeep also spoke about, which means that there has to be a reason, a compelling reason for the learner to commit to the learning process. So defining that also is important. Then the experience becomes something which is not forced upon the learner, but there is a pull, an intrinsic pull that is created. And in fact, the whole idea of culture of learning is about creating that entire ecosystem, wherein the learners, wherein the people who are a part of the learning and development fraternity in HR and business, everybody's committed to it. It's not an agenda which is run by the L&D department. That's how we have to view it. Now, if we have to ensure that the digital elements are soaked in and create for an immersive ecosystem and an experience, I would say it is about, learning to digitalize and digitalizing to learn. They're corollaries actually. So, when you get an element such as a AR/VR lab, which we have in Dr. Reddy's, we also dialed up our entire gamification, simulation, learning experience platform, the Myro tools, various kinds of plethora of tools available from Menti to so on and so forth. What we were trying to achieve in the entire process is to make, as I said, the whole experience very immersive and the ecosystem very connected. If this is what we were achieving, we were sort of making movements in the right direction. Also, I want to focus on another part, which is always remembering that it's not about a training solution, which means it's not a one-stop or a one size or a one solution. It is an experience which is going to be ongoing for the entire organization. So it's very important to prototype and also look at it from a design thinking lens. What is working and what is not? Putting in the business specs is equally important because today's learners are also, what I would say, very curious to learn the right things. And therefore, it becomes a responsibility to curate contents. We went about creating a digital studio wherein we could, create and curate our own content and make it very meaningful. Now, in the pharma space, it was also important to keep the energy levels high because, it was about working and learning together. So how do you create a semblance wherein they're not overwhelmed by the learning, but looking at it as an experience of growth? That is what helped us. Back to you, Raj, and you're on mute.
Thank you, Swati. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. The one thing which everybody has been saying, and I can hear this across from multiple speakers today, is that yes, everybody's trying to do different things, but this risk of losing the personal touch is certainly there, right? What are some of the things that you are doing to make sure that the personal touch with the learners, with trainees is maintained and they stay connected with the whole learning process on the one hand and the outcome on the other?
You're asking me, Raj, to go first?
Yeah, I'd like you to.
Yeah. So, in fact, our whole learning experience platform, we've called it I Learn. So, it is I learning. And it's all individualized, personalized learning journeys. So when we talk about, ensuring that those elements are all there, what we have tried to do is put together journey-based approaches where they are getting to connect and share with the peers, because that also increases the energy level. Also makes them dedicated in the learning journey to the end. So leaderboards, gamifications, those kind of, fun-like elements also keep them enthused in the process when they're knowing that how they are progressing. So we have to make it also very innovative in approach. So sometimes dabbling with music, different kinds of theater elements, getting in different modalities of learning also helps. Wherever possible, making it a phygital experience, which is physical and digital combined, also works. Infusing elements such as coaching and mentoring, which are beyond a very archetypical training kind of a mode, is also helpful, because then, whether it's a group coaching session or it's an individualized, people else also get to ask questions. And then there's a sense of satiety setting in that, okay, it is my journey, it is my ideas, or it is my queries that are being addressed. So how do you make it more personalized in that sense? I also spoke some time back about the joy and ease part of it. If we make it very cumbersome, like, long sessions, packing in too much, then, there is it's bound to fizzle off. The energy will fizzle off. So trying to ensure that there are short bursts and bites, not too much, which is making them feel overwhelmed, is also very helpful. The outside-in perspective always helps, because, for example, when we are at pharma, I always like to find out what's happening in retail. Jeeva has been doing some very interesting stuff. So I'm just saying that many times it's about looking beyond your sectors. So that would be something that I would urge all companies to do. It has worked very well for us. Making the conventional brick and mortar kind of organization take up a project-based approach with more service orientation in the learning function will spice it up and ensure that this kind of an engagement sticks. Last but not the least, I think the top management or the leaders have a huge responsibility. They need to role model behaviors and walk the talk. when they become learning heroes, sharing their vulnerabilities, their success stories, their failings, all of that, then everybody thinks that, okay, if my leaders are committing to learning, I better go that way and travel along.
Thanks, Swati. I think thank you, Swati. I think hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think you also answered a few of the audience questions that came in on the chat bot, on the chat box which was there, about how do you make sure it's outside in, and how do we make sure there's a balance between the machine and the learner. Ratnam, one question which is, in this, one thing which has happened over the last couple of years is that a lot of organizations have invested a lot in digitizing learning, be it in infrastructure, content development, whatever. What have you done to measure the return on that investment over the last 2 years?
Yeah, you're right, Raj. I think getting a platform, running numerous, training sessions, working on content, it all adds to cost, and it's extremely important to actually look at it from the business outcome per se. Very important to work very closely with the business so that whatever you design, whatever you create, is in alignment with what the business really needs. Finally, we are actually seeking funds from them for whatever we do.
But so, what have you done specifically to measure the return?
Yeah. I'm getting to that. So it's very important to actually set compelling objectives. While you look at the Kirkpatrick model and you say that I have a reaction, I have a feedback, I can actually look at pre, post, etc. But it's very important to see what my deliverable is going to be, and how much important is it for the organization to look up to that deliverable. And if it is monitored closely by the business and by the learning team, then it becomes that much more impactful. So while we have put in money into developing content, or we have spent hours in training our people, it's important to get the business also to validate that. And more than us telling the business that, this is the ROI, the business should come and tell you that, yes, this is the benefit that we have got, out of the training. And that's the change that we have managed to get in the organization. I'll give you an example. We were actually looking at creating smart champions across the country, and this was more for the smart technology to be understood by our retail folks. And in the process, there was a need, firstly, to get our trainers certified, then get them to go around and train people. And what we told business is that we will have to do it individual by individual, ensure that we have more champions all across our stores. And we covered close to 5,000 people across the country. In order to measure the effectiveness, we told the business that probably you could look at your sell-through, or you could check on where they stand with regard to how they are conveying the message to the consumers, and what's the outcome, net outcome that is being desired by the business. So the business ran effectiveness programs to check whether or not we are able to deliver post training, and they started scoring us. They gave us a score of 67% to start, and then it rose from there to 95% now.
That's really good to hear.
That has been quite commendable. So in a way, that proves the effectiveness. Similarly, if you look at the wedding sales,
I'm going to interrupt you. Sorry.
Yeah.
And because I think we're running a little out of time. So I think the point that you raised, I think, are relevant in terms of how to measure effectiveness. I think I'm going to cut you there and not let you speak the next one. So I think we're running a bit short on time. And I have a couple of questions that have come in both on the audience track as well as directly.
It's okay, Raj. Thank you.
So I'm going to move on to staying on this thing of keeping the balance between the personal touch and the machine. One of the things is, I think a lot of you have spoken about it, is about how do you keep the fun element going. Yeah. So if I can request Jeeva to throw a bit of more light on this one, how do you keep the fun element in training going, especially in the virtual space?
Yeah, Raj. I think I touched upon few points earlier. So the way we gamify things, using virtual reality, using Mentimeter, Padlet, so all these icebreakers. So these are some of the elements we are using in fun learning. I also recall, as I think Nishiganda talked about this, I believe. So and then Sandhydeep also, humanizing organization. I think that's the foundation. So when you're talking about humanizing organization, I just recently I read something from Dave Ulrich. He said MBCI, managed by checking in. And knowingly or unknowingly, I do it in all my meetings. So first 5-10 minutes, we talk about some of the personal stuff and some of the learning what we learn from each other. I think that check-in is very important in recent times, and I think most of the leaders they consciously do it. No, there is a personal connect first before getting into the business. Of course, you are not going to compromise on the performance, but still, it is important to have a personal connect, and that empathy is very, very important. And I think knowingly or unknowingly, I personally practice, and most of my team members also practice this. And second thing is they also carry the same thing with trainers. So every training program, if it is a virtually led program, so first a few minutes, we used to play some games and call it as an icebreaker. I'm going beyond that. No? It's about having a personalized, empathized conversation. So when you are empathizing the conversation, and you're not only talking to the employee, and most of the time the conversation is also be listened to by the family members. You're also addressing the extending family members. They know who's your bad boss and who's your good and colleague also. So this conversation is very important, that we do it in all the sessions. The first 10 minutes or 5 minutes, it's more personal connect. And the technology, as I told you, we are using a lot of things for the gamified VR or ER and all this stuff. And one more interesting thing is micro-learning. Micro-learning, in fact, now if I have to really compare, there is an increase of 313% increase in terms of usage. Usage of micro-learning. Micro-learning, it's not about only just 2 minutes video or something. It is a story. So we create some excitement, and then there is a half-finished story, and we invite people to complete the story. So there is an engagement at the same time they do it. And it is substituted by a lot of micro reels, like Insta Reels. There is a micro Reels, there is micro podcast, and there are a lot of things. So that's how the shorter elements, shorter content, and then democratizing content. It make it really funny, and then they are also be part of this.
Thank you, Jeeva. Thanks a lot. I think that's quite a few things which are being done to make sure that it's the fun element is kept there. Meenakshi, can I ask you, do we have more time, or have we run totally out of time? Because there are a couple of questions that are still there.
You could take the question, sir.
All right. So I'm going to ask Sandhydeep, and one point which has come up is while a lot of things are being done, what are some of the new challenges that are being thrown? Because I think there's a lot of good being done today, and there's effectiveness being measured on the one hand, the fun element is being kept in place. People are trying to keep the personal touch as much as possible, but it's still early days. The jury is still out as to whether the personal touch is really maintained or not, I guess, from the feedback that we hear. But what are some of the fresh challenges that you see appearing ahead of you? As a learning community, and even from a business point of view, what are the fresh challenges on this element of virtual learning and the humanizing of it?
I think the biggest challenge, and I would say it calls for acute understanding of fine balance. is to be able to answer the question, when is it getting too much? And that's been traditionally an area where training was never too much. It was always a little less. Whenever you ask anyone, it's always a little less. And suddenly we're finding a shift in the whole way people are looking at learning and training. And very often I hear business leaders question, even participants question, is getting too much. Because what has happened is, in order to suddenly we've kind of got confused with engaging people is equal to training people. Earlier, engagement was equal to entertainment, and suddenly now engagement is equal to training. So I think the biggest challenge is to be able to find that balance between when is it getting too much, and we need to step back, continue to evaluate our interventions, and keep on answering back to yourself first as learning professionals, that am I doing too much? Am I going overboard? And then if there is a question from the business, be able to present that business case and tell them, look, it's not too much. This is just exactly what you need, neither too less, neither too much. I think that is one of the primary challenges that I face. Other than that, I think we're all equipped with everything else, and technology is helping us big time.
Thank you.
I just want to add one more point. It's very easy to get tempted and follow things which are in fashion and in vogue, like a fad. Like we are spoiled for choice. There are so many tools available. So picking the best fits for the right cohort or the audience in the right measure and what will work in your context is very pertinent. So it can't be just going all over. While best practices are important, learn and get inspired, draw lessons, but that bit about best fit also is equally important.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think best fit is one major thing. And apart from this thing of, is it getting too much, and that finding the balance, Karanjeet, would you say there are other fresh challenges which are popping up?
Yes, indeed they are. So for example, I'll give you a live challenge. Instagram Reel. Everybody gets attracted to it for a period of 15 to 30 seconds or 90 to 120 seconds. But that breaks the learning journey. And at the same time, it spikes up the attention level of the audience. That's pretty real. It remains. Gone are the days of the Facebook. And the audience is so charged up that they wouldn't mind coming back after a 1 or 2 minute so-called hiatus and saying that, could you please repeat that for us? We just missed it out over there. So that is challenge number one. Challenge number two, I would say, is the applicability of content. So it is indeed outcome driven. And yet at the same time, what happens is that there is an immediate sense of deja vu that would this work for me or not work for me? And how do I get it, applied in my sphere of work? So what necessarily needs to happen is that even if the intervention is for even as short as 15 minutes, there needs to be an absolute belief that now after investing my 15 minutes, now I can do the next piece of work far more effectively or efficiently, or even both. That is where the rubber hits the road now. So quickly coming up with simpler solutions, if not necessarily content, to bring in an immediate sense of motivation, not gratification, motivation, saying that yes, I am in the right program, I am listening to the right person, and I know that after listening to this, I can apply this to make my life easier. I think for this to happen, content has to be extremely, extremely relevant to the need of the audience. And it is we who, in a way, decide the audience. It is we who, partner with the business and come up with a learning solution. It is we who know what are the challenges. It is up to us to decide how to roll it out. But at the end of the day, if the ROI doesn't come, it all falls flat, no matter how short or big the intervention is. So yes, the challenges are there. They are slightly different, but that's the fun of learning. We keep on doing more. So in today's world, because of this intervention. Fortunately, we are in a space where audience chooses to speak about and give feedback rather than just fill out those feedback forms or the monkey surveys. They would just say it straight on the face. So we give that environment for them to say, is it going to work for you or not? Is it going to help you to achieve your goals, your objectives, or your targets? If the immediate answer is yes, it gives us some level of confidence. But when we go back and share it with the business in terms of numbers, which we track, the business says, yes, there is a shift. And that is what gives us confidence.
Thanks, Karanjeet. Thank you very much. You're saying multiple new challenges coming in, but at the same time, we as training professionals focusing on it, we'll be able to overcome it. To stay with that one point that you raised, and we talked about it several times, this thing of keeping the fun in training. I'm going to, at the end, ask Nishiganda to perhaps, while you spoke about some examples, Nishiganda, when you give us one example that perhaps of how at your organization the fun element is maintained in training.
Thanks, Raj. Raj, the important thing is the trainers were working remotely. However, the team was there at the store, right? So we actually took the benefit or the advantage of it. And we actually, whatever they were learning, we made them record their own skit and present it to the trainer, and that actually kept that learning and the experience which we talk about, like the role plays or the skit or whatever you are learning, demonstration of your learning skills, that kept on, that continued for us actually. That helped us a lot in, bringing that fun element and the liveliness of the training, and we could continue with that. At the same time, we had done that, we were like when the, some of the people were affected and they were quarantined and they were not supposed to be there in the store. They were at their remote locations, their homes or wherever they were. We actually had formed groups, online groups, and we had given them the topics wherein they were planning the online skit or a online, in fact, we asked them to prepare a movie as well. And, they kept on presenting it to the entire audience or the trainer. We did the recordings of those, some of the, good movies or the good skits and presentations and uploaded on our LMS so that, everybody else can also actually see. I guess that kept on the fun element live.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. What I'm hearing everybody say is that, yes, there's a lot of work being done to ensure that the humanization of training goes on. It is still early days, and there's constant improvement, innovation, new practices coming in. There's also this check on saying, how do we make sure that the return is there on that investment that is being made, both from money terms as well as otherwise from an effectiveness point of view. There's a lot of work being done on that element as well. Fun times, challenging times, but certainly I think what I'm hearing all of you say is that the learning function and the organization as a whole is doing its best to ensure that the personalization and the humanization of training continues, right? And that's doesn't become anonymous and dehumanized. Thank you so much for all those insights and those inputs that you all have given. I'm sure our participants would have gone away with quite a few learnings. I hand you over back to the organizers. Meenakshi, back to you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.